who are we? CCLA difference, what? Difference makers.
Good morning, everyone. How you doing? So it's nice to see the people in the room, but we're being recorded. So we have some people in the Zoom room. So welcome people in the Zoom room. The people at the table, as you see, you have a QR code on your table that will give you access to the presentation. You also, in the Zoom room, we're going to drop the link in the chat for you so you have access to the presentation as well. Thank you for coming to my session. I'm excited that you are here. The title of our session is Inclusive Pathways for All Learners for Post-Secondary Success. And as you're here today, even if you're an elementary teacher, you play a key role in the success of students with disabilities to up through middle, high, and post-secondary. So we'll get into that a little bit today. I'm excited about this conversation that we're going to have today. But first, I would like to kind of survey the in-person room and the Zoom room. So people in the Zoom room, could you place in the chat if you're elementary, middle, or high? And in the room, could you all tell me if you're elementary, middle, or high?
Actually, I'm a special education specialist for K-8. I'm middle.
Oh, elementary school. Right. And you are here at the county office. She is an EL coordinator. We love who she here. And then who's in our Zoom room? Do we have elementary, middle, or high represented? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. So today we're going to get started. You do have a home-based document. We are UDLizing this presentation. So on your home base, you will be able to access all the different resources for this session with the QR code. So this doc, generally when you go to some type of UDL training or someone has been UDL trained, you'll see they'll have a home base. And the home base has, you can actually take notes on this document and you will participate today. And I will show you that. But it has links to the home base. It has links to the presentation. It has my contact information. It has a couple of tools for you. And then who's in the room? If you will, in that portion of the home base, type in your name and your title or role, just so I'll know like what your background is. So as we do activities or have discussion, I may need to shift some things. So that would be greatly appreciated. And then it has our agenda for today. And then it has some questions that we will begin to explore shortly. So I'm going to transition back to the PowerPoint, but the first question is, what does inclusive practices for students with disabilities mean to you? So if you're in the chat, in the Zoom room, please make sure you go onto our home base and start to enter your responses. What does inclusive practices for students with disabilities mean to you? You may have a child with a disability, you may have a relative or a friend, or you may teach special education, or you could just put like what it means to you when you see a student included. I just want to kind of see how you feel about having students with disabilities included in a gen ed setting, included in STEAM courses, included in CTE courses, included in various different settings on field trips and clubs. What does inclusive education mean to you? And as you type, I'm going to just introduce myself. So my name is Chiara Perry. I am the Assistant Director for the California Collaborative for Inclusive Pathways. I work here at Santa Clara County Office of Ed, but I provide professional learning, training, and resources across the state of California. This position is a grant-funded position. It's on a 5-year grant. And so we have started, this is midway of year 2. I can't believe we're like halfway through the year already, right? So this is year 2 of our grant, and our focus is post-secondary, right? What are students with disabilities doing after high school? And so the state has asked us to focus on like secondary transition, professional learning to set students up for success after high school. So we are partnering with a couple of other agencies to offer some professional learning in UDL. We're partnering with Open Access. I partner with Inclusion Collaborative, and we've done some training with some school districts here in Santa Clara County. We are partnering with CECIL, which is another organization, another grant who does UDL, right? We are doing some professional learning on inclusion in CTE courses. So we will do that training at the end of the month at the California UDL Summit. And then we are also we are attending like the CTE training this year so we can roll out more professional learning to support CTE teachers who are basically from the business or career sector, right? They're not like teachers, but they're coming back to teach their trade to students. So we're hoping to partner with them and provide them some professional learning. So that's something that we're doing. And also we are looking at some of our inclusion of some of our students who are moderate to severe in our county programs. Can we get them more? And now we have our wonderful alternate pathway to a diploma that's new for some students. And so we are doing some education and training on that. So we're excited about this work. And it's a grant funded position. And you know what grants, we're always doing surveys. We got to collect data. We want your feedback. So at the end, I have a survey for you to complete because I'll need it for my grant. So I'm excited about this work. Inclusion of students with disabilities, it is my reason why I'm in this profession. I love having an impact and helping to change post-secondary opportunities for students with disabilities, removing those barriers and breaking down those walls. So I'm excited about that. Just a little bit about me. This is my husband. We moved here because he's a nurse. So we moved here from Georgia. We've been here for almost 17 years now. These are my two sons, Justin and Kelsey. These are my siblings. My mom had 3 kids. My dad has 9. It's complicated, and we're going to keep going. These are just a little things that are special to me. I have a goddaughter. I have 4 goddaughters, but one passed away of cancer. I am a cancer survivor. In October, it will be 19 years cancer-free. So and for me, I'm from a very small town right here in the middle of Georgia. It's the kaolin capital of the world where they mine chalk, right? Which you make paper and different products with. Very small town. We used to have 1 red light. Now we have 2. We're doing big things, okay? Big things. And we have a few NFL players from my hometown, but we also are known for the little girl, Honey Boo Boo. Do you know her? She's from my hometown. Don't judge me. This is my dad's home house where I grew up, and these just are some pictures of me growing up. How many of you remember double exposure pictures, right? Long time, right? On time. All right, all right, all right. I attended a training recently, and the the facilitator, she did like her journey in education. So I just added this slide. I won't go through it, but it'll let you know like all of my different experiences that I have. I spent a lot of time in middle school and high school, right? I've been a coordinator, I've been a special ed director, a county office coordinator, now I'm an assistant director. I teach with our EPIC program here at the county, and I also teach sometimes at San Jose State. So, and I want to do this work because I want to prepare them for when they come into our schools, right? Like I want to make sure they're ready to support our kids so that they can be more inclusive. So that is my why I do that work. So I'm excited about that work, and that's just a little bit about me. California Collaborative for Inclusive Pathway is a part of the California statewide system of support. And with this support, we have geographic leads, we have county superintendents, but the most important thing is we serve under the resource leads, and it's several of us, and we work together and we provide free or very low cost professional learning to school districts throughout the entire state of California. So I'm excited about that work, and if you have more questions, feel free. I can share some of that information with you. Throughout this presentation in the resources, you'll see some links to professional learning that's offered by people that are a part of the statewide system of support. And our main goal is to empower LEAs. Can someone read that for me?
The vision of the California Collaborative for Inclusive Pathways is that every student in California, including students with disabilities, thrive socially, emotionally, and academically within inclusive learning environments and post-secondary opportunities.
Because who wants to go somewhere and not feel like you're welcome or you belong, right? That's so important that we create these opportunities for our students, because when you're struggling to learn, that's already a hurdle. But when you don't feel like you're welcome or that you belong in a setting, that's a several other hurdles, right? So we want to empower teachers, administrators, and even parents on what inclusion is and what doors and pathways there are for our students with disabilities. All right. So as you set up your setting, you see on your table, I've given you some different resources. You have access to all of these resources on your home base or in the PowerPoint, right? You have some high leverage practices, you have the new UDL guidelines, and you have a UDL collaborative planning sheet if you're planning lessons or if you want to support teachers. And so we're giving it to you in multiple formats because we want to be the change we wish to see. And so we're doing that. And it also, I want you to notice that we're using closed captioning during this session, and we would love to see more teachers using closed captioning in their classrooms, and their laptops can pick it up. And I just ask you that when you set up closed captioning, don't put it at the bottom. Put it at the top, because you're having to lean and look around people if you're trying to read to catch up, right? Because some students have to like to be that visual and read what you're saying, although sometimes closed captioning does not translate exactly what you say. So we have to be careful with that and put that disclaimer out there. But it is very good, and this is UDL design content and activities, and it's great for you to use in presentations and really advocate that for teachers as well. So today we hope to make sure that we increase your awareness of inclusive practices for students in middle and high school. And we're going to talk a little bit about elementary as well. We're going to talk about some awareness of system barriers and biases. We're going to talk about increased awareness of transition activities that start as early as early start to preschool, preschool to TK or kinder, and then the fifth grade to sixth grade, and then there's the eighth grade to ninth grade, and then there's that senior to post-secondary, college, career, or vocational, or independent living. So lots of transitions, right, to post-secondary opportunities. All right, are there any questions thus far? Any questions in the chat? We're good? Okay. So welcome, people in our Zoom world. Thank you for coming today, and we're glad you're able to join us. The amazing things we can do with technology. So right now, on your tables, you have a note card. And for people in the Zoom room, I want you just to jot down on a Post-it or a note card, wherever you're sitting at, or use your phone to take notes. And I want you to pick out where you are and what your emotional state is today. It's Friday. Where are you? And then to kind of write an explanation of why you feel that way. Oh, don't yawn. It's going to make everybody yawn. I'm going to give you like 1 minute to do this. So hopefully it doesn't take that long. Oh, you're looking for it. All right, all right. So now that we've had our 1 minute, so people in the virtual world, if you will enter in the chat your number for which one you are, we're going to kind of do a little surveying of the room to see how people are showing up today. So for in the room, do we have any ones in the room? In person? No ones? What about in the chat? Any ones? Any twos? No twos? Threes? Three? All right. Who she's a little fried today? Is it because it's Friday? You're fried? Okay. What about fours? Four fours? One four? Fives? Any poached? Six? Scrambled? Seven? Sunny side up? Twos? All right. Tell me what that means if you're sunny side up. Explain that to me.
I feel how I like my egg sunny side up. I guess I'd my explanation for that one was just being grateful to have the learning opportunities.
Would anyone in the virtual room like to share why they picked sunny side up? Please type it in the chat and we will share it out. Scrambled. Okay. Did they put their reason? Yay, we're happy you're here too. Thank you for sharing. So I just want to just check in and see how people are. I think I'm a kind of a combination of different things. I'm glad it's Friday. I'm a little sunny side up if you can picture that, right? But I've been scrambled because I've had a lot of things going on, right? Like, so I'm excited. So this is a little fun activity to make you kind of think of something different than the normal things that we do, but I thought it was fun. All right, our why. Why are we here? And I know some of you wrote your why in the home base. So let's kind of go back and revisit that and kind of talk about that. So what does inclusive practices mean to you? This is like your why, right? And you all put some different things: understanding students' strengths and challenges, building on those strengths, providing students and staff with ways to access information for their peers. And I'm modeling that today, right? So you can type in, you can participate, you have paper to write on. We're tapping into how you're feeling, we're checking in for your mental health to see how you're doing. These are really important things that you can do for students to make them feel welcome and that they belong, right? That rightful presence piece, providing a way for all students to participate in all activities. So important. No barriers. Planning for students. It means providing every child with an opportunity to progress both academically and socially within a welcoming and safe environment. I mean, I don't even know why I'm presenting. You guys already know this. This is wonderful. Okay. Our next question, what I want you to start to kind of think about as we continue through this presentation is, what do you know about high leverage practices and UDL, and set you some learning goals for today to make sure that you what do you plan to take away or to take back and share with your colleagues about this session? And then in a few minutes, we're going to do a turn and talk. But I'm going to go back to the presentation. And, oh, no, I don't want to share. I want to slideshow. And then I got to turn my, anytime you exit out, you have to go back and turn your closed captioning on. 1, 2, 1, 2. We're ready? All right. So our county office and our former superintendent was really involved in special education and inclusive practices. And our board has set priorities for us in regards to inclusive practices. And I just wanted to highlight this. And some districts have inclusion and inclusive practices or students with disabilities in your strategic plans and your LCAPs. So you have some board priorities. And as you see, special education is some things that our board sets as a priority. But improving access to an inclusive, equitable, and high-quality education is one of the things that we really believe in here at Santa Clara County Office of Ed. So I want to let you know why we're so vested in this work, and our board believes in it, and that means a lot because our board consists of community members, right? So it takes all of us to make sure that we are meeting these goals for our children who will someday run our world, right? So this is important. So I want you to take a few minutes, just close your eyes here and on Zoom, and I want you to think about a world where there are no barriers for students with disabilities. You walk into a school and you see students with disabilities engaged with non-disabled peers. You walk into buildings, we already see them, right? You go to the park, you see them. There are people who have started to build playgrounds. There are inclusive playgrounds, right, for students with disabilities where their parents can play and join them in wheelchairs. So in our classrooms and our schools and offices, there are businesses that have people with disabilities, right? But why do we continue to segregate out students with disabilities and put them in separate settings? And I know that teachers feel that's their best intention, right? They need to go here, they need more help. But we really need to start looking at our system, because lots of people look at it as something's wrong with the student and that's somebody else's responsibility. And with UDL and high leverage practices, we want to start to think is, how can we plan intentionally for these students so they can be included? And what does a teacher need in order to help students be inclusive, right? Because that's a huge hurdle for some teachers. And so just imagining this, right? This is the whole purpose, imagine it. Because our kids are with us for 12, 13 years, and some of our students that are in the post-secondary program, they're with us for a little bit longer. But once they leave us, they go into this world, and there's no special day class in the real world, right? Jobs do not, if you go on a job, they don't have a place just for people with disabilities. When you go into the grocery store, they don't have a section just for people with disabilities. And when you get on an airplane, everybody boards the same way. They don't have a section for people with disabilities. When you go to restaurants, they don't have a section for people with disabilities, right? So why are we continuing to separate them in our classrooms and in our schools, right? We're still doing that. So we got to start to think differently. We have to. It starts with us, right? It starts with us. So I want someone to read this slide for me. Can someone read this slide for me?
Sure. To suggest that all children must learn the same things at the same time for the same purpose is inconsistent with what we know about the brain. If the same claims were made about the bodies, one could argue that all children should run at the same speed, jump at the same height, create art at the same level, and sing with the same voice. Fritz Mingert.
Deep, right? Real deep. Because I can tell you this, Sharpera can't sing and Sharpera can't run, because Shara had screws in one knee, right? But oftentimes, and I don't think it's intentional, I think that it's kind of like scared, right? Teachers don't want to be vulnerable, but they want all kids to be reading right at the same level, on grade level or higher, right? And that's easy. It takes work to plan for struggling learners and students with disabilities. And it's not me, it's them. But this is our job, and we have to figure out how to make this happen. But I just love this quote, and I've had this like for years, ever since I like first got into leadership. And I just think it's so powerful because it's what some teachers feel like every kid should be average when we're not. They're not. We are not. Okay? So this is a little turn and talk activity, and I just want you to take a few minutes. I have a few questions. We're not going to answer them all for time's sake, but I want you to kind of think about, and then in the Zoom room, we're going to put you in a Zoom room. We're going to put 2 or 3 of you in Zoom rooms. And I want you to look at this slide, and it says, how do school teams ensure access to academic standards at grade level, regardless of academic performance? So if a kid is not reading on level, what is that gen ed teacher doing to ensure that that kid can access instruction? Elementary, middle, high. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. I want you to kind of look at the questions. You can take some notes. If you'll look at the home base, there's some space. You can add bullets and type your notes in. But I just want you to see what people are doing that are in this session. And there's no judgment here, because you got to start from somewhere, right? You got to start from somewhere. And hopefully we can learn from each other and do better, right? So I want to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to walk around and kind of chat with you. I'm going to go look at the Zoom room, and I'm going to look at the home base, and then we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to go into some different tools that can help you and your system with planning for variability. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, about variability, because we're all different, right? And in the quote, right? Everybody don't run the same rate that way, because everybody would win. We would have no Olympics, right? If everybody ran at the same rate, everybody would win. So there are some differences. So take 5 minutes. I want you to answer these questions on your home base, and then we're going to come back and talk. I'm not looking for dissertations, bullet, short answer things. What's going on in your schools? Okay? And then my room monitor is going to send you into your breakout rooms. We'll be back in 5 minutes. We'll let you know when we have 1 minute left. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. So we're going to share out just like the questions, any ahas, anything resonating with you about the questions or kind of triggered. Or there's some triggering things in the questions that make you like think, oh yes, or I'm angry about this. Anybody want to share? In Zoom room, you can actually place in the chat or you can raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. So anybody want to share? I'm going to start back here. I always start in the front. I'm going to start in the back. Anybody want to share? Just pick a question and let's talk about it.
So, well, we were talking a bit about are all educators expected to teach grade level content standards regardless of setting? The answer would be yes. And I know even in my gen ed classrooms, I'll walk in and be like, what is happening in here? Because they're so busy trying to fill holes instead of doing the grade level content. That's kind of like we should already have that. Now we have to figure out how to help them understand we're doing this, and then later on pull a small group for those kids who don't get it. And so yes, and I would say in all of my classrooms right now, especially since COVID, I see that there are many classrooms who are not teaching grade level standards. And I would also say when I go into some of my STC classrooms, some of them are using the grade level curriculum and it's just kind of all over the place, and other rooms in some instances are using grade level curriculum, but in other areas they're not. And I'm trying to understand and help them see if you are not exposing the kids and you're not giving them anything and then we send them into a gen ed classroom, they're just going to be lost. And there's no way that they're ever going to be able to fully participate in a gen ed classroom for those areas where they do have strengths. So a kid who's hitting 16th, 20th percentile in a math area, let's say, if they're never seeing that gen ed curriculum in their STC classroom, when you send them over for their mainstream time, they're going to be so far behind and not want to be there because they won't have success. They'll feel like everyone knows. They won't feel like part of the group.
And so what people don't realize is they're not being exposed, and then they're put in a classroom with other kids that are all behind, and then one teacher is trying to meet the needs of all these kids that are on different levels, and then they pick up on behaviors and they get further and further behind when they actually can be in that gen ed classroom and they can engage in conversations and they can see what other kids can do. They can work with them collaboratively, and then you can provide those resources to kind of scaffold and fill in those deficit areas, right? That's so important. Do you have a question that resonated with you?
What you're talking about.
Okay. Is there one specific question that resonated with you too?
I think it was just similar to their conversation where we were talking about, um, the best. I guess what we've been reflecting on is how to best support the needs of the student, but we do believe it is the most important to still expose them to the grade level curriculum. And then again, providing the scaffolding or, small group instruction to support them in those areas, pre-teaching, reteaching, things like that. So I think that's definitely needed and it's beneficial for the students. And just for me, working in the area of special education, I answered the bullet for just talking about how it's my first year doing upper grade, 6th to 8th graders, and my experiences are mostly with at the primary levels. So I wasn't really prepared for that, and I didn't have any support in that area. So I had to be intentional on my own to prepare myself and reach out to teachers to see how we can collaborate.
And there are so many ways that you can plan for variability. And let's hear some. They have questions in the chat. Right, right. And so then the students are pulled out and the class is moving on. And so then when those students come back into the classroom, they're trying to catch up and they've missed out on content, right? And, we worked with my colleague Song that was in here. We worked with a district yesterday. Was it yesterday? Day before yesterday, Wednesday. Today's Friday. Wednesday. And we were talking to the teachers and we were talking about stations, right? And so this is a high school and their class periods are 90 minutes, right? In elementary school, you could do stations, right? Because you got your kids all day until they go to specials, right? So, and we were talking about how you could plan stations. And when you plan for variability, right? So if you have a kid that's struggling to read, now we have devices and we have Google Classroom, right? So you can push things out to those kids through their classroom. And other kids don't really have to know. You could just push assignments out. You can make a station for foldables and you could pre-make a foldable and kids can copy that, right? And they could be practicing the information. You could have a vocabulary station. You could have 2 intervention stations or 1. If you're co-teaching or if you have an instructional aide, you could be running groups. And then that's when you can do that intervention, that remediation, right? And then you can have like an enrichment table. You can have an art station. You can have kids on a math program or reading program, right? That's reading to them. So there are lots of things that we can plan for, but it just takes time to plan for that. And teachers have to have the professional learning and the support and the coaching so that they can do it. And that's what's missing, right? Because if you knew those things, then you would be able to do it. Okay. And then from our Zoom room, and that is the sad part too, right? That gen ed teacher is that content area expert. But special education teachers, we went to college, we took a reading class, we took a math class, we took history, we took language art. We have that, we've written, we've had the right to perform. So we have all those strategies. And what's key is getting them that training to make sure that they function as an education specialist. If kids are struggling to learn, create note catchers. Have a way for them to take notes. Have a way for them to see somebody else taking notes, right? You could create a note catcher and someone could take notes and share their notes with that kid and they can add them in so they can see how to take notes and they can contribute. That's easy. Or as a teacher, you could create the notes and have that student to copy them. You can print them, have them type them into their Google, or you can share them with them electronically. Like there are lots of things we can front load kids with. Even vocabulary. Kids can create their own dictionary and they can start to put words in it and write them down and learn them and give examples and find those examples within the text. That's easy, right? It's on the content, it's about the standards, and they're doing what everybody else is doing, right? It's not different, right? And if they need extra time, they get extra time in your classroom, during study skills, at home, whenever. They can do that. So these things are doable. And I love foldables. I've done a training just on foldables, and we've had everybody do it, make it, take it, and make foldables. And foldables are so cool because everybody does it. Interactive notebooks are cool. You can pre-print things and give it to the kids to put in their notebook, and they can write it. You can create your own interactive notebook and allow some kids to copy it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not the test. And it's on the standards, and it's appropriate. My favorite person who does foldables is Diana Zykis. I met them at a conference, and when I tell you they had foldables for every content area from kindergarten to high school physics. And I was just like, this is awesome. I just want to like bring them here to do PD because the foldables are so cool. And I have some examples in our presentation. Okay. Is there anything else in the Zoom room? So this slide talks about all roads lead to a diploma. All of our kids in our schools, the ultimate goal is that they graduate. No parent says, I'm just sending my kid to school to finish with a certificate of attendance, right? We want all kids to graduate with a diploma. So now we have this new diploma type, which is an alternate pathway to a diploma. And it's for our students that are severely or cognitively disabled. And it's so that they can get a diploma. And why? People ask, why do they need a diploma? What parent wants to try to get their kid to go back and earn a GED to get a job at Walmart or Target? Like if they've gone to school for 20 years, they should get a diploma, right? They've taken courses, right? They've been exposed to the standards. And so now with the alternate pathway to a diploma, it tells you who's eligible. And now colleges, there's been legislation. Colleges are creating programs for our students with severe disabilities. Right here in San Jose State has a program. UC Davis has a program. There are programs in Southern California. There are programs all across the state. I'm from Georgia. Kennesaw State had a program. The University of Georgia had a program. Florida has lots of programs. The former governor of Florida had a son with Down syndrome, and so he wanted to make sure that his kid was not sitting at home. So he made sure that his kid was included and could go to college and do what his siblings were doing. That's important. And it's not right for people to say, oh, well, that kid needs something. But as a parent, who wants their kid to be excluded? Not one parent. So we're looking at these different pathways that students can go, the high school diploma, a traditional high school diploma. This is A to G, right? You're going to a UC. This is just a traditional. You may not go to a UC, but you can go to a community college, right? And then there's this expanded options for specific youth. And then this is sort of like our opportunity schools, Opportunity Academy, continuation school, right? They don't necessarily meet your district requirements, but they meet the state requirements in most of those. And then the alternative pathways is for our students with severe disabilities. So I wanted to give you some exposure to that. I'm not going to read it to you because you're all college graduates, and I know you can read it. And there are some trainings that are being offered on the alternate pathway if you want to learn more. I will be working with Parents Helping Parents and California Includes, and we're doing a virtual parent meeting next month. And if you're interested, email me, and I can send you the link to register for it. It's 1 hour, and it's online, and you'll get a PowerPoint and some resources. And I've included some of those resources in this presentation. All right. When teachers are working with students with disabilities in their classroom, it's so important that they develop strategies to align instructional goals with state standards. And so with UDL and high leverage practices, when you plan for variability, you're able to plan for these students, right? Universal design for learning, group projects. This is what businesses want. Businesses are saying when kids graduate, they are struggling to come into corporate world because they don't know how to work with other people. And that gap has widened since the pandemic, right? Because everybody's online, they're doing their own thing and all of that. So we have to work on providing projects for kids and giving them guidance, right? Consult with the gen ed teacher. As the special ed teacher, you can't do it all, but planning together and thinking about it and coming up with some things, you all are lucky now when you're teaching, you have the internet. And you also have Pinterest. And 27 years ago, to date myself, we didn't have those things, right? You also have teachers pay teachers now. There are so many resources out there that you can kind of use. And it used to be really rigid for us. We had to follow the textbook. You had to use the curriculum. And now the textbook is supplemental, right? So there's no reason why you can't plan projects that cover the standard and then plan for that variability and incorporate things that the students with disabilities can also access, but also your struggling learners, right? That's important. CTE career readiness standards. A lot of our students aren't participating or experiencing success in CTE courses. A lot of students with disabilities may take one course and that is it. How can we support them in middle and high school with success in CTE courses, right? We could be pushing into those classes. We could be providing that support. Because one thing about students with disabilities, they're great with hands-on things. They're great with hands-on, but the book stuff is a struggle. So how can we incorporate foldables, interactive notebooks, note-taking structures, testing tips, alternative ways to submit assignments for them to be successful? Because that will change their post-secondary outcome. They won't get a certificate of attendance. They can get a diploma. They can do an internship that may lead to a job. That's changing their post-secondary outcomes, right? The California Alternate Assessment, they have different things that you have to go through to determine if a student can take that test. And these are just some resources that go along with this California Alternate Assessment tool. Okay? So Right for Presence, this is a video. I'm not going to show it to you, but it is in a PowerPoint through Swift Education. And Swift has been doing lots of work on inclusive schools for years. And so we invited someone from Swift to come here and work with us. And I just recently saw someone from Swift that came in. And her why is she has a daughter with a very rare disorder. So her why is, and immediately when you see her daughter, you can tell that she has a disability. And they immediately wanted to put her in a separate setting. And she was like, no. She's nonverbal. She has a talker now. She uses different things, picks and different things to talk. And so this video just talks about creating welcoming and belonging environments so students feel like they belong and they are a valuable member of your classroom. So I wanted to share that with you. That's a really cool tool. And then on the next few slides, I'm just giving you some data about students with disabilities, right? Nationally, from 2021 to 2022, 67% of all students with disabilities spent 80% more of their day in gen ed. That's just okay, 67%. We could have more kids in gen ed than we do. I feel like we can do better. We can do better because 67% is not even passing, right? Mm-hmm. 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 Mostly IEPs, but I put the link in here for you to go and do more research. And this comes from the National Center for Education Statistics. So, because I know people want to know where the data comes from. And so this is another one we use in some trainings, right? In 2021, an average of 10% of school-age students in the U.S. were identified as English language learners, right? We have a lot of kids moving into our country. It says average. It says average. And then here, 7.13 million. That's a lot of kids with disabilities. That's a lot of kids, right? So this is the number of students in special ed has doubled in the past 45 years. And during the pandemic, we had a lot of assessment requests. It pushed me out my job. Everybody had a disability. The parents wanted all their kids tested, right? Lots of kids, right? So it says the total number of students in special education went from 3.6 million to 7.3. That's a lot. That's a lot. Students comprise 15% of the K-12, students with disabilities comprise, these students comprise 15% of the K-12 student population across the country. And this is nearly double what it was in the late 1970s, right? It's a lot. But we need data. And I always like to provide data in our presentations because it makes you think, right? This is just a little bit of background about least restrictive environment. I like to put this legal ease in so people know that the law says that students are supposed to be provided the opportunity to be educated with non-disabled students to the most extent possible. And I don't think teams really talk about that enough before they move to placing them somewhere else, right? Because how can you ensure that they are successful after high school when you're just putting them somewhere off in a corner in the back of the school or in a portable with subpar, not the same education that their gen ed peers are getting, right? It's not the same. It is separate and it is not equal, right? All right, empower educators to support all students, right? So I love this slide because it talks about the dimensions of learning. And I don't think we visit this enough. And in the notes part, I think I put the source, but this is the average student rate of retention lecture. And this is what teachers like to do. They're up here and they're just talking at the kids. And teachers in faculty meetings, our attention span is short. So just imagine what a kid who's thinking about everything, they're not gonna sit for a 45-minute lecture, right? So this just shows you the different dimensions of learning. And what does it say is the best way for them to learn? Teaching others. But how many classes offer that as an opportunity? Not many. Not many. I love to go in classrooms and I see students trying to teach, like a little girls trying to teach other little boys or their friends. They're reading to them. They're just talking about the pictures, but they're reading because they've been read to so much that they're reading the book. They're teaching each other. And why aren't we doing that more in our classrooms? Why aren't we doing that more? When they get on jobs, they give you the manual and they talk to you about it, but they put you in the field and they expect for you to learn how to do it. And you learn from other people on the job, right? That's what internships are for and those type things. So I like to share this slide because I want people to start to think like, how can we do education differently, right? We should do more of this and this and this. Because here, this is over half the pyramid. And when you add these numbers, they are much higher than these, right? Think about it. If we did just these things, what impact would we have on education? Our test scores would go up because they would know, right? So you have on your home base a link to the UDL guidelines, and you have on your table a copy of the UDL guidelines. And I've had the opportunity to attend trainings with our Inclusion Collaborative, supporting inclusive practices, and the honor of attending a training with Nicole Tucker-Smith. We have Song Park here at our county office who works at Harvard, who has done a lot of the UDL work, which a lot of the UDL work comes out of CAST at Harvard. And so I've also had the opportunity to attend the UDL symposium at Harvard and learn from people like David Rose about the brain and how students learn and how the UDL works. And UDL works when implemented with fidelity. That's like anything you do, right? If you implement it with fidelity. But what they did with this set of guidelines, and Sung shared, this is like really the 5th version, but this version is different because they added things like nurture, joy, and play. What do you do in preschool? Play. So why should we separate students with disabilities from gen ed students in preschool when all you're doing is playing, right? Address biases, threats, and distractions. How important is it to learn from other people's behavior, right? They also put things like foster belonging and community, right? Cultivate empathy and restorative practices. This is not how kids behave. Look at how such and such is behaving right in that gen ed setting. These are all UDL aligned strategies. And then on the side, it has executive functioning, support, and access. It talks about the different things, and then engagement, representation, action, and expression are the different areas. I wanted you to have this. This is like a whole nother presentation, but I wanted to share these with you. I wanted to go a little bit, you have some slides on accommodations and versus modifications. And as special education teachers and gen ed teachers, you need to really know the difference in the two. And so, accommodations are just leveling the playing ground, right? For students. It's not exempting them. It's not dumbing down the curriculum. It's just giving them access. Modifications means you're changing it so that they can't access, right? And that's okay. And you can be in gen ed and get a modification. And gen ed teachers can just write on the assignment on a report card, such and such receives modified assignments, and it's okay, and you can still give them a grade. And I feel like one of the largest hurdles in gen ed is the teachers are like, oh, all their work is modified. I can't give them a grade. You can, and you can note that it was modified, and it's okay. It's okay, right? So you have some slides on that. This is just an example of in the IEP, which it looks different, right? We're getting a new IEP in California, and the form will look different, but I just wanted you to have some examples for people who are non-special education teachers, some things that can be done. And this is not just for California. Like, this is in other states you can get accommodations. And then I just go into a little details about modifications for you. And I know I have 5 minutes left, and that's why I'm going fast. What kinds of things do you do to maximize student learning in your district? How are you as teachers, as supporters, what are you doing to maximize student learning? Are you using UDL? Are you using groups? Are you using voice to text? Like, what are some things that you are doing to really maximize learning for students in your schools or your systems? And please, virtual people, put it in the chat if there's some things that you're doing. Anybody want to share?
We have spent time in our staff meetings talking about accommodations, so that everyone is understanding what types of things we can do to support all the students in learning. So not just the kids in the SDC class, but all of our students can have what they need to be able to learn.
Are you guys doing anything different in your district to maximize student learning? What about your English language learners? Because we have a lot of English language learners with disabilities. What are you doing for them? What are you doing to maximize learning for those students? GLAD strategies, right. That's wonderful. Lots of visuals, think time, right? So I learned yesterday that you can download something and have the captioning in a different language. How powerful would that be for kids that came from another country, that they could have the closed captioning in a different language? Powerful. Okay, question in the chat. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Lots of things. I know when I went to this one district and I saw so many kids struggling, I brought back touch math. I don't work for touch math, but multisensory is a great approach for kids, even when they're spelling, knowing the touch points and Orton Gillingham. Those are just great strategies to support students with engaging and learning. All right? So these are all wonderful. So I put this slide in, and this goes back to what I talked about, like the dimensions of learning. So this talks about the teacher driving and then the student driving, right? And when the students drive, they can get so much more done because they're able to kind of compensate for their disability, but also be creative and innovative if they need to, and then they can work with others. They get their opportunity. So I love this slide, and I could go on and on and on about it, but I have 1 minute. And then I also included just a little bit on high leverage practices. And in your folder, you have a little book for high leverage practices that you can look at that provides more details for you. That's a wonderful resource as well. And out of high leverage practices, UDL is one of those key practices. That's a high leverage practice. It's research based. It's based on neuroscience and how the brain functions, right? Kids being hands-on learning, all of that, all those things activating different parts of the brain. So I wanted to make sure that you had the definition of UDL. It's simplified here. And then we didn't get to the barriers and variability, but these slides are in here, right? And so I wanted to make sure that as you continue to work with students to ensure that they have successful post-secondary outcomes, to make sure that teachers are setting clear and rigorous goals, right, for their students, that they anticipate barriers. Who are my struggling learners, and what am I incorporating into my lesson for those students? Audiobooks, read aloud opportunities, group, share, pair. All those different things are research-based, high-leverage practices that students can do to be successful. Copy of notes, sentence stems, vocabulary, all these things are great. And then you have different design options. And this is so important because everyone doesn't have to produce the same end product to show that they've mastered the goal, right? I think of baking a cake, and this is how I'm going to end today. You all know that baking a cake is different now. If you don't know how to bake, you can go to the bakery and buy a cake, right? And present it as if it's your own. You can put it on a cake plate or cupcakes and pretend like they're yours. You can cook a cake in a microwave in a mug now, right? They give you all the ingredients, you put them in there, you put it in a microwave, you have a cake, right? You can buy a box cake, right? Very simple. Very good. I used to like the strawberry cakes when I was young, or the yellow cake with the chocolate icing, like that was my jam. But you have some people that can follow a recipe and bake a cake, but then you have people that can bake a cake from scratch. And that's when you think about our classroom, we have some kids that are just going to get it no matter what. We have some kids, if you give them the directions, they can do the assignment as long as they have a script or something to follow, right? We have some kids that can do a modified or shortened version, but they still have a cake. And then we have some kids that can listen, can get exposed, can participate in, and I call those the bakery kids. They can still go and enjoy a cake, but they just didn't bake it. And I want to make sure that as we anticipate and support students with successful post-secondary outcomes, that we really look at some of our practices, because our students aren't going to be successful after high school if we keep separating them from their peers and not exposing them to the gen ed curriculum and standards. So with that being said, at the end of this presentation, you have a wonderful video by Katie Novick. She talks about content and methods. I love her. She also has a newsletter that you can sign up for. She'll send you something to read, something to watch, and something to think about. Like she sends that every week or every month. They're really good videos. She also sent a video out that I watched a couple months ago about planning for students. It's like planning for a dinner party. And she says, you have people come, you have someone that's paleo, someone's gluten-free, someone that is vegan, someone's pescatarian, and you're trying to prepare meals so that everyone can eat at your dinner party. She says you plan a buffet and you give them choice, and that's what UDL is. You plan your lesson and you plan different activities based on the students in your classroom, and you let them pick what they want to do and how they want to show you what they've learned, right? They can show you how they master the content, them driving their learning, right? Teachers have to give up that control and pass it over to the kids. So I love that video, and I love that analogy by Katie Novick. As I said, I love foldables. I shared some examples of some really cool ones for different levels. And some of these are free online, even more for different content areas. And I love interactive notebooks, giving kids things that they can put inside their notebooks to talk about a story. As a teacher, the aide, you can kind of fill these in, and for your kids who can't do it, you can support them with doing them. And then I have my survey. Please complete it. Please, 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 please complete the survey. It'll only take a few minutes. Are there any questions? No questions? In a few weeks, the California UDL will have some monthly meetings about UDL, the California Coalition. They are having a conference, a summit on the 30th and the 31st in Stockton, which is not that expensive. So I put that information in there if you're interested. That's the link to the network and their meeting dates. And also, this is the buffet conversation. I have to change the link. So I think I put the wrong link, so I have to fix that. And then just some different resources. This is about the alternate pathway to a diploma, as I told you. And then these are some different guidance about the alternate pathway. So I put a lot of different resources in there. Some upcoming PD, and then the Inclusion Collaborative Conference. I hope that you all have enjoyed today's session. And if you have any questions, I am here to answer your questions. The conference host did provide you with a book for today, a free book, The Reason I Jump. And it's about a 13-year-old boy with autism. And then for the people in the Zoom room, will we be able to mail them the book? We have their information. If they put their if they enter in the chat their email, then maybe we can contact them for their address to mail them the book. Okay, so virtual participants, if you would direct message the Zoom, and if you don't want people to have your contact information, we will figure out how to get you the book, or you can email me at chperry@sccoe.org, and we will try to make sure you get your book. Thank you for attending today. Please, please, please complete the survey. Please, 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 I'm open to your feedback. And thank you for today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.